Welcome to Awakening, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Christian Strang, but you can call me Christian or Dr. Christian or Dr. HK, you choose. And today we are going to be talking about perhaps one of the most important areas to look at, especially now at this time in consciousness. And that is, how do you know who is actually telling the truth these days in the world of censorship, misinformation galore, and so many different experts, air quotes around experts, saying that they're speaking the truth? How do you know? How do you really know? This topic of truth is so dynamic and so multidimensional that I'm very, very, very eager to dive into this with you. This is one of those podcasts where I was given the guidance to make this podcast for you in December. And I was completing my doctorate. I was preparing my curriculum for my Sacred Spirituality Coach and Guide certification, which is now in full effect and is just blowing my mind. We're having so much fun. And so it just kept getting sort of pushed to the back burner. Like, I'm going to record that podcast. And so the divine does what the divine does when you are meant to create something and you're delaying it or pushing it back or other priorities are taking over. And this started being the topic of conversation in my client spiritual counseling sessions. I had a friend call me up and say, what do you think about this concept of truth and who is really telling the truth? And it was just started showing up everywhere until I said, I know, I hear you. I am going to record this now. So now is now. It is on in the month of my birthday. It is happening. Let's talk about truth. And let's talk about how you tune into the quote unquote experts and those truth tellers that are the truthers for you. So we're going to start off here with 3 layers, if you will, to talk about truth. Because it's important that you can connect into, what is truth? Right? Because there are so many different levels of consciousness here on this earth plane and so many different folks vibrating in alignment with so many different things. How do you really find what is true for you? So the first piece we want to step into here that's most important to set this foundation is that absolute truths do exist, whether you like them or not, whether you believe them or not. There are absolute truths here on earth. So we're not saying that there is no absolute truth. When it comes to humans and some of the topics we're going to go into here, there are dimensional aspects to quote unquote truth. But at the foundation and at the root there is absolute truth that you can, again, you don't have to believe it. You can dispute it all you want, but it doesn't change it. And those absolute truths are the laws of the universe. So we could call this, law of density, law of attraction, which is the law of cause and effect. It doesn't matter if you don't believe it. If you create good in the world, you'll experience good. If you create disconnected from source or negative, you're harming others, and that's what you'll experience. It's just how it is. And the law of cause and effect isn't going to bend to your will. Like if you're having a bad day, it's not going to be like, well, it's fine if you were an asshole to that person or you did this harmful thing because I know you're having a bad day. No, the law is in effect no matter how you show up. The law of density, or what those who believe in a different model of the earth might call the law of gravity, is in effect no matter what. You're walking on the earth, right? There is this density, the apple falling from the tree, right? So there is this law of density, the law of vibration, all of these various universal laws. Those are absolute truths. Again, we're talking about aspects that you don't have to believe in for it to be real. It just is, right? The law of cause and effect, or the law of attraction, always at work. Always at work. Law of density, always at work. So those absolute truths exist. Again, whether you like them or not, whether you're having a bad day or a good day, those truths, which are the universal source, or really Mother, Father, God created this earth plane. So these laws of this earth plane do not change, and they do not bend to any human's will. So law of Even if we're talking more spiritually, the law of karma, right? The artificial matrix understands there is a law of karma, which is why they have to tell you about all the things they're doing and tell you the truth of what's going on, like what's really happening, so that they do not carry that karmic weight of killing others and a lot of the poisoning of the food supply, of these various things. That information has to be out to you so that big pharmacy, big food is karmically absolved. Because if they were to hide this truth from you and they were just killing you and you didn't know, then they would be karmically responsible. So this universal law, do no harm. If you are harming other souls, you are karmically responsible for that soul, and that will have to be brought to healing at some point. Now, the workaround is if the other soul gives you consent to harm it, right? If the animal comes to you and lays down and says, okay, you can take my life for sustenance, then you are karmically absolved. If you just take the animal's life, you are not karmically absolved. And the same with big pharma, big food, other big systems that are killing humans and taking from humans. The karmic absolution happens when the consent is given, and the consent is given by informing you of what's happening. Okay, so that's a whole other trail we could go down. And if you want me to go deeper into that in future podcasts, please feel free to email me and let me know. But the first layer here around truth is absolute truths exist, whether you want them to be so or not, and you have no choice but to work with these universal laws because they are in effect. Okay, second layer then is truth is limited. So when we're talking about belief system truth and sort of like what we're working with here on earth, this truth is limited by the individual filters and dependent on what level of consciousness someone is in. So to illustrate, that's why we have many humans at this time having many different truths about germs and about dis-ease. And so what really activates a deeper understanding for you and a deeper level of compassion is that every human is operating from their individual filters. So they are limited by where their consciousness is at and where their psychology is, which is why I was so impassioned to receive my doctorate in metaphysical psychology, because it's really the psychology of the human that is running free will and running, so many of the choices that humans are making. And if we can address that psychology from a metaphysical perspective, which is a holistic vantage point, we will have far greater satisfaction and fulfillment and joy and peace and harmony on our earth. So it's important to know that every human, that's whatever they're sharing, that's their quote unquote expertise, is coming from the level of consciousness that they are in. And the level of consciousness that they're in is informed by how clear their channel is, what they're putting into their mind, what they're putting into their body, what they're putting into their soul, what they're putting into their energy field, what their environment is. So in that regard, we'll give you some illustrations of what this might look like. And then you can see that the reason they're so sure that they're telling the truth is because from their vantage point, they are. So I'm going to use the third, fourth, fifth dimensional model to illustrate this. Now, third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension, these are labels that we give to dimensions of consciousness that exist. But I will use also other words to help make this more tangible for you. So when I say third dimension, I'm talking about a physical focused only consciousness. So a third dimensional consciousness would be like Western medicine, right? If we're only looking at the body from a physical perspective, that's a third dimensional consciousness. A fourth dimensional consciousness recognizes it's not just physical. Right? The body-mind is linked, and there's the spirit too, and there's an energy field, and there's an astral plane, and there's more going on. Oh, you might have spirit guides, right? In fourth dimension, you expand beyond just the physical. And then the fifth dimension is a source-connected frequency. This is connected to divine love. This is connected to Source, who is the creatrix of all. She's the creatrix of Mother, Father, God. She's the creatrix of the earth plane. She's the creatrix of all the planes of consciousness. So that's when I say third, fourth, fifth, those are the other tangible words I want to give to you so that you can understand what we're speaking about here. So, for instance, in the case of dis-ease, which has been just a hot topic since 2020, but certainly one that needed elevating, which is part of the reason the light was able to take the artificial matrix's crazy creation and really, for those with the eyes to see and the ears to hear, support them and getting clarity about what's actually true about the body and what's actually true about this thing we call dis-ease. So from a third dimensional perspective, germs are something to be afraid of. Your body can be invaded and attacked, and it's very scary, and then you could die. You could die when you're not supposed to die. Oh my goodness, right? Like from a third dimensional placement, there's no connection to source. So there is no way to understand what's actually happening with the body, what's inspiring those they call them germs, but those packets of energy, and what's inspiring the human when a human leaves their body, when the soul leaves the body and the human is no longer in the body, what's really happening there? The third dimension has no access to that vantage point. It is physical only. This is the science, right? What is science? Science is created by humans, and it's humans observing what's happening in the body, on the earth. But here's the thing. The science is limited by the consciousness of the scientist, right? So, very tricky to find a scientist who's actually a clear channel, who is able to be neutral and able to observe without their own narrative and their own beliefs being placed on whatever's happening. Now, what we know from quantum physics is the minute there's an observer, whatever you're observing changes and shifts. So the scientists, air quotes, their own belief systems and their fears and their traumas and their filters get projected onto whatever they're viewing, and then it will respond often accordingly. So it is interesting because we really want to call in those that we're looking to as experts. We want to call in folks who are really clear, who aren't projecting their fears and traumas and their stuff onto whatever it is they're looking at. But from a third dimensional perspective, you're only looking at the physical. So none of what I just said even occurs to them, right? There's no connection to the divine from the third dimensional vantage point. There is like physical only reality, what other humans say, what men say. Now, these folks in this consciousness might say, yeah, I believe in God, but that's in talk only. If you are walking the path of the divine, there's way more going on when the body expresses dis-ease, when a soul makes their transition, way more happening. No one is dying of anything, just heads up. That's not what's happening. The soul has chosen to leave the body. And humans, from a third dimensional vantage point, looking only at the physical, will say they died of this dis-ease. But the truth is, they chose to go at that specific time. And that can be hard to hear when we don't want them to go, right? But that is, again, one of those absolute truths that you can argue with it, you could not want it to be true, but death is always occurring here on earth. So might be wise for us to go to a higher state of consciousness to understand what's really happening there, or not. You get to choose. So from a third dimensional perspective, disease is scary. Oh my goodness. The germs, the other humans can make us sick. Other animals can make us sick. Oh my gosh, it's so scary. Fourth dimension, you're like the terrain theory folks. You understand weight. The environment matters. There's a body, mind, spirit connection, right? There's a deepening there, and looking at the body more holistically than just the physical only. And then the fifth dimensional perspective, that everything is belief, and what are beliefs for, and beliefs form consciousness. Everything is consciousness. So anything that's happening in the body, anything that we say is transferred from human to human, is only transferred psychically through consciousness. It's all about what you believe. The body is an advanced technology that is communicating to you exactly what you need to know to become the divine human that you came here to be, to ascend, to awaken, to be your true self. So from a fifth dimensional state of consciousness, there's no like, oh, scary germs, or even, the terrain matters. Absolutely. And you know how to work with that in a more advanced way because you're connected to source, right? So it's almost like each dimension of consciousness kind of builds on itself, because the third dimension is right. The physical exists, right? But in order for anything physical to exist first, there is the spiritual component. There is the thought component, the psychic component, the energetic component, whatever you want to call it, that exists first. Right? So yes, from the third dimension, those folks are absolutely on point. From the fourth dimension, yes, they're telling the truth. And from the fifth dimension, now we have the highest source vantage point. And you get to choose, this is the really cool part, you get to choose what dimension of consciousness that you want to live in. And then you can give grace to other humans that you may not agree with, and they may not agree with you, but you don't have to argue with them about what the truth is. Because whatever, they're showing you what state of consciousness they're in based on what they're sharing. And then you can say, oh yeah, that aligns for me, or oh no, that doesn't. But interesting perspective and vantage point, right? And I can see why you feel like you have the truth and you're really passionate about it. And that's beautiful. And Goddess bless you. Right? And if we're really doing this human thing in the most multidimensional, fulfilling, satisfying way, we're going to grow, right? There was a time I believed in germ theory and was run by that. And there was a time I believed in terrain theory and was run by that. And now I'm in the state of understanding that we are in advanced technology and everything is consciousness and nothing's ever going wrong. When the body's having symptoms, it is giving us communication that is to support our evolution and our ascension. And that is a blessed thing. And thank you, God, Goddess, for creating these amazing bodies. We're made in the image and likeness of Mother, Father, God. Thank you, Source, for creating Mother, Father, God, who created this earth and is beautiful and amazing. And I'm here for it. Another example of this, we are going to health things. I'm trying to see if I can give you, here's an example we could give you from this vantage point. So third dimension of consciousness, the Bible is fact. It was written by God through other men. That's a third dimensional understanding. Fourth dimensional understanding, the Bible is filled with metaphors, teaching tools, and it's written by inspired men. And I think they let one woman in. Now, in the fifth dimension, the Bible contains codes, numerology, metaphors that can be decoded to receive some profound information and guidance. You understand that the Bible is not the only holy writing, that there are many holy writings that the divine has brought through, and that the Bible is actually created by the church. So there are women that wrote books that could have been included in the Bible, but were not chosen to be, right? So the source vantage point allows you to see things from the holistic vantage point, from the most connected to source vantage point. It's important for me to note here, because this is where, the whole love and light thing can show up, which I love me some love and I love me some light. And at the source vantage point, you're not in that naive state of like, it's all rainbows and butterflies. From the source vantage point, there's an artificial matrix here on earth. You understand what the agenda is. You know that this is a dualistic plane of consciousness. It's an obstacle course, choose your own adventure. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego experience? And this is what the humans are working with. And here's the highest path for them and working with that. So the source vantage point, or the fifth dimensional vantage point, does not mean you are in denial that there is shit going down here on earth that is not okay. You can see that, it's happening, and you're solution oriented, and those solutions come from your connection to source. Okay, so I'll give you one more example of how truth is limited by the individual filter and is dependent on whatever level of consciousness the human is in. So third dimensional perspective would be eat the standard American diet. I'm very passionate, obviously, about health, because health is not only cliched wealth, but it is your spiritual connection is also connected to the health of your physical temple. And that has come in so strong for us since 2020. And that was one of the gifts of all of the nonsense that happened starting in 2020. I mean, there's been a lot of nonsense happening for a long time, but that particular, blessing was there from the light, again, for all those with the eyes to see and the ears to hear, to really get clear about, wait, how does physical health really affect our ascension process here? What are the priorities? How do we show up for this experience in that fifth dimensional or source connected vantage point and way and dimension of consciousness? Okay, so a third dimensional perspective on food and diet would be the standard American diet. That would be eat conventional food, which is poisoned food. Now, why is it important for the food to be poisoned? It's important because the hijacked agenda or the artificial matrix or whatever you want to call it, knows that your body is an advanced technology and knows that you have superpowers and knows that you came to become a divine human in form like the one we call Jesus, like Mary Magdalene, like Buddha, like many, many great teachers and masters throughout all of time have done. Right? So the artificial matrix, the hijacked agenda, they know you're an advanced technology. The agenda knows you're an advanced technology. And the whole point is keep them in death, rebirth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, because they're harvesting and feeding off of the energy, right? So that's why we call it the hijacked agenda, because this was not the original intent for the earth that Mother, Father, God intended for all of us to experience. However, because of the dualistic nature of this plane of earth, humans have free will. When other beings came to humans and said, hey, what do you think if we give you this, we'll give you all this power and all of this wealth and all of this da-da-da if you let us in? And they said yes. So over time, that created this hijacked agenda, which the whole purpose is to harm and basically feed off of the advanced technology of the human. Because you are an amazing advanced technology that has so much light and so much power and so much ability to create the most marvelous, incredible creations. But you forget about that when you're being poisoned by the food and the water and the air and the EMFs and all the dramas and distractions, right? You forget about that. And then you're just in the day-to-day grind, the slave grind, right? I got to work my 9 to 5 and I got to make money to survive. You've totally forgotten who you really are. Okay. So the third dimension needs you eating, and in a third dimensional state, you are eating the standard American diet. And so that's poisoned food, that's packaged food, that's non-organic. You know that food pyramid they taught us about? Yeah. So that's the third dimension. Fourth dimension is, no, wait, that is not healthy. So you need to be keto. Is it keto? You need to be paleo. No, you need to be vegan. No, you need to be pescatarian, right? The fourth dimension knows there's more to the story, realizes health is important, but then gets stuck in just one way and only one way being the way. Shoot, so close. But this is how we work our way. This is how we evolve, right? In the fifth dimension, you intuitively eat. You are guided by your advanced technology. Now, you know from the fourth dimensional experience that you're eating organic, right? Because you know the food is poisoned. You know the standard American diet is meant to make you sick. So you'll go to their sick care system and take their poison medication. You'll be part of that. That is part of the sales funnel, if you will, for the hijacked agenda, for the artificial matrix. So, and that's how they harvest and feed off of the human energy. So after your fourth dimensional experience, you recognize, you get it, like, I need to eat healthy, but at the fifth dimension, you're not locked into there's only one way to eat and everyone should eat this way. And this is bad and that is bad. Like, it's shocking to me, all these amazingly gifted healers who are saying that things that the earth has created for us are bad for you. You cannot be eating this fruit or this, right? I thought fruit was bad for the longest time. In the fourth dimension, because I went through the paleo thing. So it was like, oh, I cannot eat, right? Carbs are bad. All these, it's so fascinating, right? But the earth was created by Mother, Father, God so that you and I would have everything we needed to thrive. And I'm going to hold myself back from going down too many rabbit holes on this because I'm very passionate about this nutrition piece and what I've learned about superfoods through my brand partnership with Purium and all the different things I've learned, which I was spiritually guided to. I prayed, I asked for solutions, then I was brought it. I was shown that the human physical body is under such attack and we have got to up our game there. So from the fifth dimensional vantage point, you're not like everyone has to be vegan or everyone has to be paleo or everyone has to, it's got to be organic. It's got to be high vibrating. It's got to be mostly from the earth. And then your body will guide you to what you need because your body is going to be going through, and it certainly is now, various shifts and changes. So there's going to be certain times you are craving, if the body is craving something, you give it to the body. Now, the caveat to that is when you're in the fifth dimensional connected to source frequency, you're giving the body the highest vibrational frequency that it wants, right? So if I'm craving chocolate, I tune in. What is the highest vibrational frequency of organic, sugar-free chocolate that I can have? And if you go to my metaphysicalmenu.com site, you'll see I have all kinds of chocolate recommends so that when you have that craving, you can tune into what is the highest frequency of that I can put into my body. And then you put that in your body, right? If your body's craving eggs, tune in. What is the highest frequency egg I can have? Now, I know there are folks that get very upset about this. However, in the fifth dimension of consciousness, your advanced technology guides you. Now, you might be craving an egg and you tune in and your body says, go have some of these minerals. Go have some nori or put some sea salt in your water, right? Or your body might say, go out to your chickens and take an egg and scramble it. But whatever it is, your advanced technology will guide you. If you're guided to eat animal flesh, you'll be guided to the highest frequency source of that, where that is that animal's mission, or that animal has laid down its life before you and said, yes, here I am offering myself to you. And then you will do a prayer and a blessing over that animal. So again, at the fifth dimensional frequency, we're working with it in a totally different way. But that doesn't make the folks in the third dimension, they're like, yeah, South American diet, Western medicine all the way to treat chronic illness. They're right from their physical only perspective, and for feeding that sales funnel that the hijacked agenda has created. Okay, yeah, that's their truth. And those who are in the fourth dimension, who are now at that new expanded level of understanding, wait, it's all connected. It does matter what we put in our body. Oh my goodness, they've been trying to poison us. I didn't know, right? Like they're like, paleo only or vegan only. They're right for that dimension of consciousness they're in. So you can have compassion, understanding, everybody's at where they're at, and that is their truth. Okay, so that's another way to work with quote unquote truth. Now, we'll go to the next piece, which is really the highest vibrational understanding that we can bring you, the highest consciousness we can bring you, which is that when you're vibrating in connection with source, you will be guided, you will receive divine guidance to your spiritual lineage and to the specific mentors, teachers, healers, guides, etc., that are to support your soul's evolutionary journey. So it's really easy psychically, energetically to get on the bandwagon of whatever, the mainstream is promoting, or even whatever the other end of the spectrum, that other sort of movement, whatever that movement is promoting. We want you to get really clear about your spiritual lineage. And then ask to be guided to the teachers, healers, guides that are of different modalities. So I recommend having at minimum 3 guides, healers, each have a different specialty that is specific to your healing, right? So it might be, energy medicine, counseling, superfood nutrition, right? Those are your three healers or guides. Now, the other piece to that is these guides are most likely going to be folks that are part of your spiritual lineage. And this is what we would encourage, that you get clear about your spiritual lineage. And then the guides and healers and the quote unquote truthers that you listen to come from your lineage, and or you've had many incarnational experiences with, and you can feel that soul resonance. Now, how do you feel that? You feel that resonance because when you see them, you know them. you remember them. When you hear their voice, you remember them. You know them. You know this soul. I've had so many clients over the years, that say the minute I saw your photo, I was like, I know her. The minute I heard your voice, I started crying. I've had people tell me, and I knew, yeah, she's part of my team. So this is where the real truth comes in. This is how you access what your highest divine truth is. So we've given you, yes, there are absolute truths that do not change. We've given you how to work with all those folks out there who say they're telling the truth about all these different kinds of topics and they're experts in all these different pieces. And now we're giving you the fifth dimensional or source vantage point of how do you really tune in to what's true for you. So how do you access your spiritual lineage? You ask. You ask and it is given. You pray for this. You ask the divine, however you define it, whoever you pray to, show me what my lineage is. Right? So for instance, my lineage is Mary Magdalene and Yeshua. I'm of that lineage. Mary and Yeshua are sister and brother of mine from many incarnations. Of course, they're spiritual guides for me. And many of us, and I would say if you're listening to this, you may be part of that lineage as well. Now, one of my spiritual mentors was not teaching under the Mary and Yeshua lineage. She was teaching under a yogic lineage that I have no resonance with. That's not my pathway. So that wasn't where my resonance was. But the minute I saw her, I said, I know her. I have chills. I know her. And there's a lot of negative projection towards hers. I mean, the mainstream media did multiple hit pieces on her. I was shocked, but it mattered not to me because I know who my sisters of the light are. I know who my spiritual mentors and teachers are. I recognize them. So I don't care what anybody in the mainstream says. I don't care what anybody says in her yogic lineage. She's a sister. I know she's a sister, and she was a mentor to me until she transferred her consciousness back into non-physical, and now she assists me from non-physical. So your truth tellers, those that you go to, your wise women and men, are those that you have journeyed with before. They're brothers and sisters of the light to you, and they are often a part of your spiritual lineage. Meaning, if your lineage is yogic, then you will find, and there are very, many different strands of these yogic traditions. So there's a specific yogic tradition that is your lineage. Your teachers and guides are going to come from that. And then you may have, like I did, a teacher or guide that's not of that yogic lineage, but the minute you see them or hear their voice, you know. Oh, that's one of mine. That's one of my people. And that's who we want you to focus on. And that's who we want you to go deep with. Those specific ones that are here for you because they have the medicine that is for your specific journey. So, somebody out there, I'm thinking of some of these, different folks in the healing space that have been elevated as like, oh yeah, they have the truth and they're the experts. But if they're not of your lineage, their truth is not going to resonate for you. If they're not from your incarnational experience, their truth is not going to resonate for you. I know folks that are so passionate about different teachers and they send me the link and I'm watching the teacher. I'm like, I feel nothing. Because it's not of my lineage. Now, it doesn't make it wrong for that person. They've journeyed with them before. So they need to continue journeying with them, right? Just like you need to tune into your lineage and to tune into those guides and healers and teachers that you feel that resonance of, oh, I know them. And then, this is important as well. These are flawed beings. If you're still on earth, you got work to do. There's gaps in your consciousness, right? So, the teacher I mentioned before who got a lot of flack from a lot of humans, she was not a perfected being. Of course, she was still here. And by perfected, I mean she was not without flaw. But that mattered not to me because I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for my mentors, my soul agreements that I made with specific teachers that they were going to support me on this earth experience. Because it takes a frickin' village to do this human thing. You think you can do this by yourself? You are struggle bussing it the whole way through. We do not do this alone. We do this together, and we do it best together with those who are part of our lineage or who we have soul agreements. We've had previous incarnational experiences with them, and the agreement is that they will support us. And that's how you know who to listen to, because what the wisdom they give will be just for you. Now the ultimate, or we'll go even, actually we're going to add as an addendum to this, right? So you have your 3 teachers' guides, either of your spiritual lineage or who you have a deep soul connection with. And then they're going to give you guidance, right? They're going to give you guidance. They're going to recommend you do this, that. They're going to give you whatever it is. Then you take that into your advanced technology and confirm whether that's a yes or a no for you, specifically if you feel unsure, right? So my mentors or my guides, and whether that's Mary and Yeshua or a physical guide, they can give me guidance and practices, and I'll be like, yeah, absolutely. I immediately begin implementing them, no problem. Then there's other things I'm given and I'm like, I don't know, or maybe the timing doesn't feel right. And that's when you go into your advanced technology. Now, we recommend, and what I teach the folks that work with me, is going in through your sacred heart. And there's a yes or no process you can work with in your sacred heart. This is so amazing. Your body, your advanced technology comes with inner guidance. So anytime one of your 3 mentors or guides or teachers gives you something and you're like, I just don't know, go to your advanced technology through your sacred heart and it will tell you. And there you go. Then this is everything you need to know about truth. I just gave you everything you need to know about truth. Like, how easy is this, right? And that cuts out all the distraction of all the different healers and experts and quote unquote doctors and quote unquote scientists and quote unquote whatever they are. And yes, we all have these different designations, but it's only true for you if the resonance is there at the soul level, at the multiple incarnational level. And then you're not nitpicking, you're not tearing them apart, you're not looking for what's wrong, because you know this one is for me. And so whatever resonates for me, I'm going to do. And whatever doesn't resonate for me, I'll take it into my advanced technology and adjust accordingly. And now you're having the most grounded, deep, rich, abundant, love-filled, joyful experience, because you're not being distracted by everyone else's truth. You're not having conversations or debates about who's really true about whether an egg is good for you to eat or not, or whether, there is a hijacked agenda or not, or whatever it is, whether these diseases are real, or whether you should take that certification, or if you should give that gift. You don't get distracted by any of it, because you have your team of support and you have your advanced technology, and that's all you need. Also, bonus, you get so much more time added back to your day, because I know folks who are listening to millions of podcasts and listening to all these different things. They're taking in so much and they're confused. So stop doing that. If you don't feel a resonance with me, don't listen to my podcast, right? If you don't feel like, oh, I know her from before, or she's part of my sacred lineage, then let it go. There are definitely folks who claim to be of the Magdalene and Yeshua lineage that I don't resonate with, because they're not my soul people. So start with your spiritual lineage, then you'll find your soul resonance. And then when you ask, right, you're asking, please show me my spiritual lineage. Please show me who the truth tellers are for me in this incarnation. You'll be brought them, just like I was brought that teacher that I referenced who's not of my lineage at all, who were in totally different streams in terms of healing. But the minute I saw her, I knew. And she was getting torn apart. And I don't care. It's a sister of the light. She's one of my mentors. I know it to be true. Everyone who's here has gaps in their consciousness and is flawed. I'm not here looking for what's wrong. I'm here looking for solutions. Okay, my loves. That is everything I wanted to give to you about how do you know who's telling the truth, so that you can have greater clarity, because it's going to continue Things are going to continue to shift and change forevermore, of course. We're going to see more of the dropping away of the third and fourth dimension, which really now I see as a transformation, right? Because I've been in the third dimension on all of these topics we've talked about in this incarnation. And then I went to the fourth dimension, and then I went to the fifth dimension. So I let that be so for all with the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And so it is. It is so. If this podcast episode was of benefit to you, please feel free to share it with someone who you also have a soul resonance with or you feel is part of this lineage. Please pass it along. Share it far and wide as you feel called. Thank you so much for listening, being here on earth at this time and being part of this transformation in consciousness. It's an honor to serve you. I've got free golden age visualization meditation for you. I encourage you every Sunday at 11 a.m. in your time zone that you listen to it, that we all come together as much as possible and visualize this new earth, this new reality, this golden age that is being born. Go to sacred-spirituality.com to receive that free meditation visualization. I also have a sacred love transmission from Mary Magdalene on there you can receive for free as well. So again, go to sacred-spirituality.org. May all light beings be free, and may you be blessed by the highest light of source. And so it is. It is so. Until next time, my love.